Advisories, McKinsey, Regiments and Trillion. We concluded our investigations there. Transnet was quick out of the blocks with these investigations and have already proceeded to court on their own prior to the SIU's investigation getting going. And they have launched civil applications and litigation in respect of the officials that have been listed there, as well as entities, and these matters are pending in the High Court. There are also other outcomes to be noted there. McKinsey made a settlement of 870 million rand, which was paid to Transnet. Regiments, there was a settlement agreement concluded as well for 180 million rand. However, nothing has been paid as yet in terms of that settlement agreement, and the SIU is reviewing that settlement agreement as well. Unfortunately, now Regiments is also in liquidation, in final liquidation, and Trillion is also in the process of going into liquidation, which frustrates our civil recoveries. In respect of Nedbank and the interest rate swaps, also denoted as a state capture-related matter, our investigation is concluded and our ongoing support is being provided in terms of referrals that the SIU has done as a result of the investigation. The SIU and Transnet together have completed our court papers to bring a review application in the Special Tribunal to review and set aside the irregular interest rate swap transactions. Transnet and Nedbank are in the final stages of mediation in an attempt to reach a settlement over these irregular interest rate swap transactions. The SIU has referred evidence to various regulatory bodies where further action is required. The Ekwembu matter, I won't go into detail here. The matter was brought by a whistleblower and the contract has since been terminated. There were no findings of irregularities there, though. Moving on to slide, Inspector of the Conflicts of Interest. Again here, this is the matter where the SIU does a forensic data analysis comparing the employee database with the SIPC database and the payments database to determine where officials have businesses, and those businesses have done business with Transnet and have been paid with Transnet. We identified quite a lot of red flags, but the nub of it is that 9 disciplinaries thus far have been presented to Transnet, where officials failed to declare their business interest, and that business conducted business with Transnet while they were employed there, and they did not have the required authority to do so. Transnet's already engaged with our investigators and is commencing with consequence management. There are 14 more such disciplinaries being prepared to be handed over. And the SIU, importantly, has made systemic recommendations to Transnet to improve policies and governance in respect of this area, with the declaration of business interests and the obtaining of permission by officials to conduct such business. The Neotel contract, which Neotel is now trading as Liquid Telecoms. In respect of this matter, the investigation is completed and we have launched our review application in the Special Tribunal with Transnet for the CCTV cameras, which were meant to go to the ports for 834 million rand. The AFU is championing settlement discussions, and the SIU and Transnet are involved therein, and we have agreed to stay the review application for a very specific period to allow space for these discussions to take place. The SIU has referred evidence against 43 individuals and companies listed there, pointing towards criminal conduct. The SAP investigation, also state capture-related matter. We've appointed a senior counsel here, but a very recent development is that there are now settlement discussions on the table being led by the NPA, and Transnet and SIU are participating therein. Other outcomes are a criminal referral, as well as the SIU working with the Securities and Exchange Commission investigators from the American DOJ in respect of their investigations into SAP. Cutting Edge, investigations done. We're appointing senior counsel to set aside the contract, and we did an NPA referral against 9 entities and officials in November. T-Systems, this is nearing conclusion, another company that is frustrating civil recoveries as they are no longer in South Africa, and our legal team is considering the avenues that are available to us for a successful civil litigation and or recovery in this matter. GSS, slide 39, this investigation is concluded. We are also appointing senior counsel through the State Attorney's Office to set aside the contract. There's a disciplinary that is pending against the Acting Chief Procurement Officer, which Transnet has started the process. It's not yet concluded. and the second official involved resigned prior to his disciplinary being referred. Moving on to KZN matters, the Durban container terminal berths, as mentioned in the earlier civil slides, we are already in court in this matter. Other outcomes are a criminal referral to the NPA, CIDB referrals, as well as 12 blacklisting referrals, the details of which appeared in the earlier slides with progress made thereon. NMPP, allegations here involving corruption in respect of a senior Transnet official, Mr. Msagala. The investigation is completed and we're in the civil litigation phase. There are significant civil outcomes here. The SIU approached the tribunal in order to secure a preservation order, which we did in July of 2020 to freeze various assets of Mr. Msagala to the value of approximately 14 million. And we then brought our main application with Transnet, which was launched in August of 2020. We successfully secured a court order to recover 26.4 million rand from the parties in August of 21. The order is in the process of being executed. Already we had secured about 14 million rands worth of assets belonging to Mr. Msagala, comprising properties, luxury vehicles, and his pension. This has already been forfeited to the state, so it's just the balance between the 26 and the 14 that is being recovered. We also made NPA referrals and are working very closely with the NPA in respect of pursuing this prosecution. The disciplinary, the SIU handed over the evidence pointing to the disciplinary on slide 42 in respect of Mr. Msagala, the group executive, and he was dismissed. So we referred in March 2020 and in July 2020 he was dismissed. So there was swift action in taking the consequence management to conclusion there. Other referrals included a blacklisting, a SARS referral, informing Transnet of their obligations in terms of Section 34 of PRECA, and also blacklisting referrals to the Engineering Council of South Africa. This is just a timeline depicting the story of Mr. Msagala. The 24th of March, we made the disciplinary referral. On the 25th, the criminal referral is made. In July, the application is launched to preserve the assets of Msagala. August, we institute the main application. And on the 31st of August 2021, just a year later, we're successful with an order in the special tribunal to recover those monies lost. We then move to the cranes from Liebherr, also a state capture-related matter. Investigation is concluded here. Liebherr offered to make a repayment to Transnet for a portion of the contract, which has been done. And the settlement was signed on the 31st of December. Again, SIU is always involved in settlement agreements and work closely with Transnet in this regard. The cash recovery was 54 million rand and has been paid to Transnet, and that was for the agency fee that was paid. Further engagements are underway in respect of a supplier development aspect of the contract. And again, as part of the settlement agreement, the parties will pursue the setting aside of these contracts in the special tribunal and have the settlement made a just and equitable order of court. The pipelines investigation, I'm not going to go into that. It was concluded and there were 2 referrals done there. We then move to phase 3, and these are the matters that are currently under investigations. It's important to note as well that we receive a lot of referrals from Transnet directly, and all of these matters listed here, 1 to 6, have come as a direct referral from the Transnet board requesting SIU's intervention. Apologies. It is noteworthy that matters 2 to 5, where the leases are involved, the SIU requires an amendment to our proclamation because it does not specifically cover leases. It's not a procurement event. That proclamation has been drafted and submitted to DOJ and DPE for support and further approvals. In the interim, we are empowered to investigate the conflicts of interest and the corruption, which we have done, and we detail the findings a little bit later on. Further phase 3 matters that relate to state capture are the ones listed there: Hatchgaboro, CPI, TNA Media, and the Manganese Expansion Project. These matters are being assessed by the SIU for the prospects of civil recoveries. Whilst the Zondo recommendations are mainly in respect of law enforcement and for criminal investigations and prosecutions, the SIU is still combing through the matters to determine if there are any civil recoveries that can be made in this regard. Further state capture matters, the Nkonki matter. Our investigation is underway and progressing well there, and it looks like there will be outcomes. The delinquent director applications, we're on slide 48. This is an initiative being driven by the DPE. Transnet and SIU are supporting this with a view of having the former directors of the Transnet board declared delinquent. So we are providing the necessary support and assistance in order to bring that about. Two other matters, the GNS Abalonzi contract and the legal fees that were paid for Mr. Gama to attorneys are not covered by our proclamation, and we have submitted already an application for a new proclamation to cover that. Several of the state capture matters are not listed on these slides because we have dealt with them in Phase 1 and Phase 2. So this then concludes and covers all state capture matters related to Transnet. Additional Phase 3 matters that we are looking at that have come to the SIU's attention are in respect of Transnet Freight Rail. Here we are focusing on the allegations pertaining to ghost trains, emergency procurement and serious maladministration within Transnet Freight Rail. Transnet Port Terminals, here we are focusing on allegations of corruption, serious maladministration in relation to Saldanha Tipler project and the Richards Bay Port Terminal. Some of the outcomes in Phase 3 that we are pleased to be able to share with you in terms of Transnet properties. Investigations are ongoing into conflicts of interest and the corruption there. We're working closely with law enforcement where we have made criminal referrals already. We've got a couple of outcomes here that we're pleased to be able to share with you. And there are 3 civil matters here that are in court already. The first one, on slide 50, is a preservation order. Now, this is a different matter to Msagala matter. There's another preservation order also in respect of luxury properties and pensions of 2 Transnet officials. In July of 2020, we went to the Special Tribunal, and in August we got our interim preservation order and froze assets of former Transnet officials, being Mr. Labelo and Mr. Mashamba's pensions, as well as their luxury properties in Rosebank and Danefern. The second matter that is in court in relation to these officials and the contract that they were involved in awarding irregularly is to Superfecta to the value of 156 million. Transnet and SIU are in the Special Tribunal and are litigating to have that contract set aside. The third matter in relation to Transnet properties is in respect of the Lenele review application. Here, the SIU uncovered evidence of corrupt payments between the Transnet lessor and Transnet executives who have since been dismissed, the same 2 executives mentioned earlier. It's a 30-year lease worth 498 million rand, and this is one of the critical leases because it's in the Durban port. Transnet had already taken the lease agreement to the High Court to review. The SIU's evidence pointing towards corruption significantly will bolster this case, and so SIU has applied to the High Court to join Transnet as a co-litigant in the Lenele matter. And as I said, this will certainly strengthen their hand in this review application. Disciplinary referrals have been made in respect of Mr. Mashamba, property manager, in June of 2020, and he was dismissed in August of 2020. Again, swift action, 2022, yeah. Sorry, I'll change. And then Mr. Shlom, the regional manager, we did a referral in March of 2022, and he was dismissed in August of 2023. Then the last referrals there were SARS referrals, as well as a criminal referral pointing towards corruption by the Transnet executives. And again, we're working very closely with the Specialised Commercial Crime Unit and the ID to fast-track prosecutions in this matter. The last slide is the National State of Disaster Procurement. This investigation was done under Proclamation R23 of 2022, which dealt with all the COVID procurement. Here, this matter was referred to the SIU by Transnet as well. Our investigation is being concluded. Our evidence assisted in Transnet receiving a cash recovery from insurance to the value of 37.6 million, which has been recovered and paid. We also recovered laundered funds from an attorney's trust account to the value of R1 million. And the SIU is proceeding with the review application in the Special Tribunal and anticipate that our papers will be launched within this week. We've made NPA referrals for corruption, money laundering against 15 individuals and 8 entities. The 2 Transnet officials who were involved in this and who inflated the prices and received the gratification were dismissed and were disciplined and dismissed by Transnet already. and SARS referrals were made as well in respect of this. And that is our feedback. Apologies for the high speed, but I was aware of time constraints. Thank you.
All right, no, thank you very much. Advocate Mtiri, any conclusions?
No, thank you. Thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. That's our presentation. But just to underscore one of the perennial issues that we continue to face as we investigate and make referrals to those officials who resign in the face of disciplinary action, as we always state, that even though they can terminate employer-employee relationship, we will continue to pursue them civilly. When we submit civil litigation to recover, we will also cite them as parties for the damage that they would have caused to Transnet. They will not escape that. And of course, when we work with NPA referrals, they will also not escape criminal pursuit. Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Mtibi and your team just hang 10, where questions will come in the one session of the question and answer session, so you still stay there. Right. May we go to Transnet, please? I think this will affect a seating reshuffle here in front, so Transnet can have access to and CEO. We're going to dive straight into the performance section of the presentation, because I think that's the one which is material to 21, 22. And I know that the sections that you had delineated to the CFO, she will then come in and make an executive summary of those sections, but performance is the one. But let's start off with the board. Any introductory remarks on their part, and then we will come to the CEO. To the board, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, Honourable Minister, and
having a throwback,
and the honourable members. I am no longer the chair of the board of Transnet. Chair, there is a new chair, and he has asked me to tender his apology and asked me to be part of the delegation today. Unfortunately, I seem to be the only non-executive director here, but I ask for the apologies. I do think that there are apologies from the new directors because they are new on the board, and the schedule caught them at the time when they had commitments that they could not change, being professionals serving on a range of other institutions, boards. We're gonna start off with the group CEO opening, and then should be followed by the executive directors to the extent necessary in respect of the aspects that need to be covered, and we would like just to be very focused on these matters. And I'm pleased that the SIU has lucidly presented what we have dealt with regarding the recoveries and consequence management in respect of all the matters that damaged Transnet historically. With your permission, Chair, I'm going to ask the GCE, Ms. Portia Darby, to speak. May I suggest that we don't go, we are a huge group, we can't introduce everybody. Whoever is called upon to speak may introduce themselves at that time. Thank you, Chair.
No, that's fine. Just one confirmation that's required. You are still a board member, right?
Yes, I'm still
because if the absence of that would not have proceeded in the absence of board representation. All right, that being the case, CEO, over to you.
Good morning, Honourable Minister, Honourable Chair, and Honourable Members. Chair, we will go to the section that you requested. Viola, just can you go to the performance, please? To the performance overview. Chair, first of all, the other board members, just to indicate, they are on Teams if they are required. Thought you wanted me to go a little bit further than this, than starting on this slide, which was the context. Yeah, can you go forward? Yeah, maybe just go back, just one down, up, please. Yes, and I think this, Chair, I'll just try and summarize up. A lot of what's been presented by the SIU will relate to a lot of the cases, the long-standing legal matters that we have been dealing with, which were resolved in the 21-22 financial year. So I think we should be able to proceed from that. Chair, as we did indicate when we were doing this presentation last year, is that a large driver of the profit at the time was the revaluation of the TFR, of the TP, Transnet Properties asset portfolio, and that would have affected most of the divisions in Transnet, and in particular the investment portfolio. Can you move down? I'll also indicate where we've now at, because we did worry a little bit about this issue that we are overlaying two periods, both last year and now we've just made the results. It would be difficult to ignore what's been said already. So when we look at the 21-22 financial year, where we came to an end of it, achieved quite significant improvements following on the COVID period on movement of manganese. Auto capacity was also up with all of the challenges that we had at the time, as well as the ore corridor, because the challenges have not changed. The issues which were around locals, infrastructure investment and security incidents have not gone away particularly. So in that year, one of the issues that we were looking at is what opportunities are there for private sector participation to help us fund growth in particular, so that we would be able to continue using our internally generated resources to deal with two fundamental matters. One, the debt pile that we've had, as well as the second issue is to look at sustaining capex so that we could continue to run the operations, and then obviously the operations. On Transnet Engineering, thankfully, even till now, if you look at it, we've been doing a lot better in terms of cross-border revenue. In fact, we've even achieved better results in the last financial year. We've been looking at opportunities of supplying some rolling stock even into the mining industry in the last financial year. Also, the overhaul of rolling stock remains a priority, and had started having discussions with other state-owned companies to see what's the possibility of collaborating with them. Can we go to the next slide, please? In the case of TNPA, for the longest time, one of the big issues that we had here was our inability to deliver on the CapEx program on time, and to just move in terms of building infrastructure. By now, one of the big issues that we've done, and you would have seen this in the media basically, is the several tenders that we've been able to advertise. In that financial year, a lot of the time was going into the design work, the RFIs that needed to go out in certain instances, and RFPs in others. When you look at port terminals, I have to say the area that we've done particularly well at is in these autos space, and we continue to do very well on autos at the port terminals. Agriport, which is in Durban on Maiden Wharf, which was always a little bit of a laggard in the last financial year, actually started to do much better, and thanks really to the great team that work on that side. We continue, and an area that we started to look at in this area was, if you recall, there was the ranking outcome on the ports, South African ports, and we were looking at how we might be able to fast track or leapfrog in our rankings. And the two issues that we required, I suppose, two issues really that we required was Did we have modern operational practices at container terminals, number one? And number two, needed quite a lot of cash to invest in port equipment. Unfortunately, historically, as a result of the view that there would be a privatization, and this is over years on the strategy, there had been a significant underinvestment in port equipment throughout Transnet, throughout the port system, actually. And in fact, even at TNPA, when you look at on the marine services, the fleet that we have. Can you go to the next slide, please? And then Transnet properties, with the recovery from COVID, we were able to see an improvement in the litres of fuel that we were able to move on the NMPP, and have been able to actually then, which were the opportunities we were looking at the time, was LNG, both at Richards Bay as well as in Ngquga. And TPL has participated and actually is participating in the bidding for the terminal operator in Richards Bay, and that's already closed, and we are waiting to see what the outcome will be. In the case of Ngquga, unfortunately, that project is moving a lot slower due to a range of issues related to how the structure of the partnership. And then coming to Transnet Properties, Chair, a big exercise for us was to look at the valuation of the assets. Now, Transnet Properties was historically just a cost center inside Transnet and not a separate operating division. At this point, we created it as a separate operating division, number one. Number two, we were consolidating all of the investment properties under Transnet Properties with PPE plant property employees. There's 55,000, includes the contract employees. We continue to focus on enterprise development. ESD spend was 67 million rand, and if you look at the investment, which is on the, before I go to the next page, just one of the areas that we focused on rebuilding was the Transnet Academy. We collected all of the schools under one umbrella and created the academy so that we would have focused investment and focused attention. Thankfully, we've started to see quite good spin-offs out of partnering with some of the FETs as well in this area. We remain a level 2 BE contributor as Transnet. Can you go to the next slide, please? On supplier development and our contribution, a significant chunk, we spent about 12.5 billion on black-owned enterprises. Of this, 7.4 was female-owned businesses, and black youth was 1.8 billion rand spent. Pillar Pepper continues to be our premier foundation project, which a CSI project that we remain committed to. In 21-22, you may be aware that we had also created a train, which is the Transvaco, from which we were able to carry the vaccines at the required temperature. Chair, next slide, please, which is the last issue which in the last year was in 21-22 we were still grappling with, was this issue tied to fuel theft, where fuel theft leads to spillages and has environmentally impacts. The team has had, in the last period, has done significant improvements in this area, because actually even the amounts that we needed to set aside for the rehabilitation, we've been able to whittle down and work systematically to reducing the allocations and also to reducing the number of sites that we have open as a result of spillages. Chair, I'll hand over to Nonkululeko to go through the financials. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable members of the Scopa Committee, Honourable Minister, board members and colleagues, good morning. In terms of the financial year 2021-2022, just in terms of the summary of the performance that we reported, it was revenue that had grown to 68.5 billion by 1.8%. We also had net operating expenses reducing by 5.9%, reported at 45 billion rands, and an improvement in the earnings before interest, tax and depreciation, as well as amortization, an improvement of about 20.5%. And again, this was at the back of it being a COVID year in 2021 and us moving to 2022 financial year. In that financial year, we reported a net profit after tax of 5 billion, coming from a loss position of 8.7 billion in the 2021 financial year. We spent in capital expenditure requirements for the business 13.2 billion. It was a reduction compared to the prior year of 16.8%.